anytime.
Okay.
You
Well,
know,
And
I want
I'll post the video on my YouTube channel, and then post the link to my channel on Slack too, in
okay,
case you
great.
want to go back over it or something like that.
Okay, great, great.
yeah.
Thank you.
So don't feel like it's gonna be like like I'm gonna have plenty of ability for you guys to be able to interact as well.
Yeah,
Like and hopefully we'll get that. And then especially I want to make sure everyone has the ability to have a look and use it basically.
yeah. I'm gonna be taking a look. I just had one more question before I
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. No problem. Feel free
Will
to ask.
does the WDS have the ability to deploy like a large volume of machines and like
Absolutely.
create names and customize things
Absolutely.
with counters and everything?
Oh, absolutely. It
Okay.
does all that. It
Okay.
it doesn't care what this is basically you're building the system the way you want it to be.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you something before you go. So remember I told you this is a task. So when I go to open up, this is what you can see in the tasks. These are all the specific tasks you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, the first step is that it's going to check if you have the files that you wanted to use. So if you have rules that says, okay, I want to run and use the following, parameters. So like here, for example, on the deployment share, we have rules. And these are the rules that the system will go by. And so if you match it, you can have an OSD computer name and you can define what you want it to be as like the serial number. Do you have a specific, ID you want it to use? So you can basically tell it, okay, I want to skip the computer name. I want to use the following OS computer name. So I can use
Okay.
names as serial numbers. And these are rules, just so you know.
So we can create a rule that would say, okay, if the computer has this machine name, give it the same name upon reimaging.
Yeah, basically, I'm basically giving it the rules that I wanted to follow. I wanted to use my rules. I don't want it to use someone else's rules.
Okay.
And this is actually just a bit of it. Now, as far as the actual kit itself, here is the real blown up view. This is the ones I'm using. So you can see how like I have the org name, package name, build task sequence ID.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, so if you have something, which task you want to use, you tell it, okay, I want to use this task number that's in there.
We just have so much more questions to ask, but I feel
like you know what?
I was the same way.
Yeah,
you can do all kinds of things with it. I mean, you can have it put certain software on there and just you name it. I mean, so much.
I just wanted and like even like the joining the domain and
here
all these things.
This will kind of give you a better information. So this is what it's going to tell you. We'll check what is doing the image. It starts from left to right during the proof and sets the variables accordingly. And so it's going to be basically,
say you're doing this somewhere, and you'll still have Remy to talk to on Slack. If you're in the middle of doing this sometime, and you're having
so I'm going to be here anytime.
Yeah. So he'll always be here.
This would be good for you actually. So I don't know if you see this default gateway. So if I have Ghost, I can tell it, well, I want to run from this server. I want to run from this server. I want to run from this server. So you can have different locations.
Okay. So Remy, I really have to go now, but thank you so much for taking the time and really covering this with us.
Oh, no
Appreciate
worries.
it.
Feel
and
free
I'm gonna
to
try
join anytime.
Yeah, next week. It's gonna be really tight, but I'm gonna make a way.
I'm gonna try to get a meeting set up next week. let me ask you this: what's your preferable if you want to do this? When would you like to have this meeting?
Because next week I have another meeting actually around
Mm.
actually that literally conflicts with that ends at 7:30,
Okay.
and then I have another one right after that, and it's crazy, I know.
Okay.
7:30 my time, so it's like 7:30 my time EST. So like the meeting, like I'm gonna be hopping from one meeting to the other
Okay.
just next week.
Yeah,
So I
I'm
would
gonna
say
make sure this
Wednesday,
meeting is available
Wednesday,
anytime.
yeah, Wednesdays is the best day for me because I don't have anything in the evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and see if I can have Wednesdays morning or evening available.
Only if it works for everyone else. I don't want to disrupt everybody's.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and see.
No,
Me
it's
and
not.
Daniel will
It
talk
doesn't
to them.
disrupt me at all. I don't do. This is basically all I do too. I mean, I just besides going and helping people with their computers and whatnot. So I'm fairly free. So it's not wouldn't be disruptive at all.
Yeah, there's
Just
no shame
whatever's
in that.
most convenient.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Okay.
Well, Emilio, I'm glad you came to join, and feel free to come anytime and ask me in
Try to
Slack,
stump
whatever you
him.
need.
Yeah. Thank you. All right,
All right.
guys.
We'll see
Bye.
you later, man.
Bye bye. All right, Daniel. So I just want to kind of go over, like, I just showed you earlier today. So
Yeah, I'll
this
let
is
you
basically the custom settings.
I probably won't ask a whole lot of questions, and I'll just sit here and let you go
Yeah.
through everything and
No,
whatnot. And
no, don't worry. So custom settings is basically like your list of things you want the server to do. So when you put up the like ghost wearer, it's going to read off of what you have on the server. It's going to say, well, I want to go based on the following, like the priority. Is this a laptop? Is this a desktop? Is this a VM virtual machine? Where's the default gateway and the default settings I'm going to be using? And the properties, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to look at computer type, where's the site, and what group I'm going to join the machine to. So in the first one, it's going to tell you, by laptop type, is this as a laptop? So when the system boots, it reads off of the BIOS of that system to check, is this a laptop? If it is, it's going to basically go from there and say, hey, okay, so this is a laptop. So I want to set up the following on this. I want to do a BitLocker. I want to do this and this. And then the next set of it is the same thing. It's going to be also, is this a VMware? Then it's going to do the same thing. It's going to go from specific instructions. It's like if it's a VM, then it's going to install the ESXi or the VMware drivers needed to run. If this is basically a desktop, then however you want it set up, it's kind of up to you. You can have it, as an DT. You can have a specific, ID.
Since it's an image being deployed out, you can basically and virtualize. You can basically make it feel like desktop, laptop, or anything.
Yeah, you're giving it the rules. You're telling it, okay, I want you to look at my computer, and you can tell me this is a desktop, a laptop, or this is a virtual machine.
Okay.
Remember, it's talking about the BIOS. It's looking at the BIOS, and it will tell it what it is. If this is a VMware, it's going to brand it as a VM. And then the second portion is the default gateway. They look at based off computer IP address or VLANs. This is kind of like a Cisco, environment where you can have locations set up. So I could have location could be Chicago, Tokyo, Moscow, or Germany. Then I could basically point to what server,
Right,
what
to
deployment
specific
share,
ones. Yeah.
like specific shares that's located. So if you have a deployment share that's in Tokyo and the other one's in Germany, and I could basically target specific to the IP address.
And it would use those in this creation of this image.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So you can use IP address or the UNC path. So it doesn't matter. So it basically sets location based off the computer IP address or the VLAN while booting itself basically.
Okay.
So it's almost similar to saying variable where UNC or IP location then referenced like a go-to option. Okay. And this is kind of basically if you have DFS or something to replicate the initial deployment.
Yeah.
So like 10.8 test IP.
Right. You could set
so
it
this
to
would
that.
be the example.
Okay.
So like if it's 192.168, then it would be referenced to Chicago, 10 dot whatever could be Denver. So you can have and so on. So you can have different locations basically. And these are all, especially if WSS as well. If WSS is located in Chicago and whatever, you can basically target that location, and then tell it what to do initially. So this would be the default. So after it
what to do initially, it'd be like reconnaissance initially.
Exactly.
Then install.
So it's going based off. So it's basically going by the priority. So it's looking at the priorities of what you gave it. So did you tell me it's a VM? Okay, so I'm going by the. Afterwards, I go to default. So I'm going down towards defaults. So it will be everything that's in this section. So the first is skip task ID. So if I basically know, if I know what task sequence I'm using, I'm going to tell it, well, I want to skip that wizard. And I'm going to reference this ID number to use. So if you know that you're building a server, that you're giving it the ID number. So it's kind of like similar to the computer name, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's kind of like, Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows XP. This is your tasks. You're basically giving it the ID number that it's going to reference to when it looks for it on the server.
Like whenever it searches for an internet connection, that's a task that it does during an installation.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So when you pick the boot, it's going to scan the server and it's going to look for a file called the custom settings. It's going to read the settings and it's going to look for anything that it sees this number. If it sees this, it's going to just run it. But if it doesn't know that, it's going to, it will tell you, can you tell me what task sequence you want to use?
Right.
So it doesn't know. You're telling it, basically. And then dynamic host names, like remember, this all comes down to the computer names. So if you are generating the computer name based off the side, yeah. So for example, we have maybe Chicago DT, and then the serial number off of it.
Right.
And these are all. This is how you tell it that you want to generate a computer name.
So it makes them all unique and
exactly
slightly.
So it could be like CHI. So it could be like CHI dash TM dash DT, then the serial number.
Or you can do
so
basically
like Chicago,
anything.
So it'd be Chicago, Tech Me, desktop, and the serial number of that computer.
And then you could say each one add another number, like desktop 1,
exactly.
desktop 2, desktop 3, desktop 4.
You could actually, and the thing is,
that's like an
algorithm
type.
Doesn't necessarily have to be. You could even set that as a default OSC, and then you give it the name you want.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You can assign the OSD as a default. So you can have like, DT or CHI dash this, and then it would you put in like, the following name, yada yada. And then when you deploy, you'll be the one giving it the information you want it to be.
This is where I probably should learn a little bit more of PowerShell.
Well, yeah. And then you got basically the next set is a dialog box that will brand the system. So it'll be telling imaging this PC, and then the package I'm using, and then I'm skipping the passwords, the keys, and the backup. So basically, I told it that I'm running the imaging on Macy Daniel's laptop, and I'm using the following task sequence in this. It's going to reference which task it's running off of.
And
So,
skipping all those things would be normal because you want the user to do all those things, set that up themselves.
basically, you're creating the rules that the user will work off of.
Right,
Basically.
right. The beginning, yeah.
And then logs. So right after when it finishes, it's going to create the logs and send it to you so you can look at it.
Okay.
So it's going to send all the logs to the server so that if for some reason there's an issue with a machine you're deploying, you can look at the logs and see, okay, what the hell just happened here?
What's the longest you've ever had to like sit and stare at a log
Exactly.
screen?
So it's going to it's going to create logs of all the work you're doing. So if there's an issue, you can go to the logs and see what's going on. And you can see if a step did not work correctly, or somewhere it stopped and it doesn't like it. Right. So you'll be able to trace it. And same thing here, the event service. So basically you'll be able to see the steps it's doing in the process. You'll be able to, and you can even remote control the system itself that's running the configuration. So as long as this computer is online, you can actually remote control to take over the deployment. And so the user will give you a ticket number, the IP address, and the port number, and you would basically connect to it.
Oh, okay.
And then the next one is basically similar to encryption, just like we talked about in HIPAA. And remember, HIPAA talks about encryption.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you already know
you have to have encryption for HIPAA
yeah,
stuff.
no. If you have already set up the settings for the BitLocker, and you don't want the user to do it, you skip it.
Right.
And then display settings. You know the drill, so you know the bits per, you know the resolution, the refresh. So you basically give it all the settings off of the display. So you know this is a 32, or this is a 32 bit, and this is a 60 refresh display. So it kind of
would be very, very, very granular. Like
exactly. You're customizing to the displays basically.
Yeah.
And then hide everything except the status box. So once it finishes the deployment of the OS, then it starts the next phase of the rules, which is installing the application.
So if that was no, then it would show every single error like as a little box.
No, it's going to hide the entire OS. It's going to disable access to the shell, basically.
Okay.
So if nobody touches it while it's running, the configurations to it.
Okay. Oh, okay. So they can't mess it up or change anything.
Exactly. Okay. So it's like a locked down environment during the install phase.
Okay.
And then skip user data. So this would be kind of your part of this. So like if you want to back up the user's file before you image.
That would only be if there's something there beforehand, right?
Exactly. So if you know there's a file you want to back up, if you know you're going to have to back up the profile, you tell it you want to back up and point to the location. And user migration tool is going to back up the files before you image.
Oh, okay.
Once you return.
So if I wanted it to like back up the My Documents folder before it imaged, then I could say no there and then go here and
it'll
back up this file.
Based on the rules.
Okay, gotcha.
So as long as you told it you want backup, if you're told to skip, it's not going to do it.
Right.
And remember, skip means it's going to skip the wizard.
Right.
These are all, by the way, remember I showed you the UDI of SCCM?
I believe so, yeah.
It's literally based on that. These are templates. These are the wizards that it's going to read off of. So if you told it that I want to skip user data, it's going to skip the template of that file. So I'm going to show you where for nuts and giggles, I'm going to show you that. So we're going to open up the portal here. We're going to go to D drive, deployment share. Just open up here. So this is basically the folder that it's going to look at. So here is the captures folder. This is where it will send the images to after you finished. And here's the control, the OS, the drivers, and the package and scripts. The scripts folder is where everything is tied to it. So here's the deploy admin accounts, wizard, application, BitLocker, capture, these are all related to the wizard. And these are all also customizable, by the way.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to run them the way that you can customize those files.
Okay.
And here's a blow up of it.
Programming language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is it's linking to the file, so it's looking for that specific. So you're told it, well, I'm gonna run the script name deploy wizard credentials. So I want to look for that, and I'm gonna run it.
Actually, that almost looks like, in a way, like HTML.
And here's for shits and giggles. This is basically the light.
I use that saying all the time.
So this is the actual the whole entire the script that's running. It calls the script.
Okay.
So here's what it does. The option explicit. If not utility arguments exist, so debug capture event on error resume. You see how it's basically you can have it like new like touch.
Oh, this is the algorithm. This is the actual like the if and when statements that it's going through. Okay.
See, here's all the functions that it's check for administrative rights if we are using XP or Windows 2003. If not, then throw an error and exit. And check OS version.
Oh, that's neat.
So worry.
Oh, that would be neat to just look through all of them and see what they, how it's written, and maybe is that how you taught yourself? Just looking through all these scripts and kind of. Okay.
Yeah, you're like in a nutshell, everything in the task sequence is you build it the way you want it to be. So, like for example, when we open up the task sequence, these are all based off of the rules, but you're telling it.
And that's where you would customize it.
So, like for example, so here the first thing is initialization. Gather local data. Gather only the data itself. So what it's basically doing is, okay, I have a file named custom settings. I want you to read off of that, and I want you to go based off of it.
That's if you want the
then
custom.
Go into validation.
Okay.
Then it's going to validate.
Check
hey, do you have enough memory?
Right.
Do you have the minimum speed?
Right.
Check to ensure specific image size will fit.
The minimum requirements, basically.
So basically, I could set it if I wanted to. I could tell, well, I want to make sure that the system can be up to 100 gig, 200 gig. So you're basically telling to if it meets a certain size.
Yeah, I wish the Chromebook makers would have made their hard drives just a little bit bigger.
And here's also the same thing. Ensure current OS to be refreshed is a client or server.
Okay, so if you're
defining
to
the rules,
like the regular people that are going to be using it, or more servers that can,
Exactly.
Okay.
And then check BIOS. The same, like I told you, it's gathering data, and also here it is, ZTI BIOS check. It's going to run this script. It's going to check. Okay, so is this a laptop? So it's going to check to see what is this? What is this exactly? Is this a laptop? This goes back to what I told you about the variable. Is this a laptop? It's going to check against that BIOS. It's going to see if this is actually a laptop. If it's not, then it's going to proceed on to whatever rules you told it. And these are all scripts. These are checking against the actual, like, for example, let's go back over to the scripts folder. We're going to go over to the ZTI BIOS check. And here, this is basically the BIOS check configuration. So what's happening, it's going to validate correct BIOS before Windows install. So it's going to check basically, is the BIOS up to date? It's going to check, the first. It's going to look at the system. Is this, a Lenovo? Is this, a Fujitsu? You see how it's saying for each data in set attribute the name and the computer system product vendor, and if called the case model and the date. So it's going to look for the BIOS release. on that the system itself.
Okay.
And then it just basically pulls all that data and brings it into the logs. And here's what it also says too. So if this is a Windows Vista, then this is going to tell you, it will throw this error. This BIOS is incompatible with Windows Vista.
Oh, I hate Windows Vista so with a passion.
Yeah. So this basically is talking. It's going to run that script to check against you to make sure that you're running a valid or basically a compatible software.
You know, I hated Windows Vista so much, but I got so much business like reinstalling and speeding up people's computers because of it. I I kind of think the opposite now.
And once it finishes all of this, it goes to step 2. So it'll run this script, and then it's going to tell it, well, I'm done the first few pages here. So it's finished validating that this machine is good for wearer. Then it's going to do the next step, capture. It's going to then, depending on if you're told that you're backing up the files or you're upgrading, it's going to capture everything on there. It's going to look at the state of the machine, the groups that's assigned, the network settings, and then depending on how you're going to do it. If this is a refresh, it's going to disable the protections and then apply Windows PE. And then it will run the next phase if you're told you're doing a refresh. Now, if you're not doing that, then it's going to basically go through the pre-install phase. But it's going to check against, okay, so this is a new computer. So it's going to validate. It's going to, depending on what remember I told you the same thing, validate that the system is fit for install. And then we got the format. So there's 2 of them. You have the BIOS and UEFI. So these are what you would set up the volume, or you can set up the parameters. So if I click here, I can give it the name, the percentage. I can give it all the information. I can go from gigabyte to megabyte as much as I like. Excuse me. And then you can tell it you want to run in FT32 or NTFS, and the variable for the letter.
Yeah.
So basically, you're building
through your all your basic stuff, and
exactly.
You don't hear me ask too many questions just because I'm recording it and letting you, just go through everything.
Yeah.
You want to.
I'm just showing you.
Okay.
And then the same thing, UEFI, and then copy scripts. It's going to copy like the sysprep, the pretty much whatever scripts it's going to get ready to, and then offline state capture. If you're remember, this is the one I told you in regards to the capture the data. So this is the capture phase. So it will back up the files if you told it, and this will kind of initiate, and then from there, all these are the steps it's following. And once you're pretty much done, when you are ready to go and you want to start this process, you want to tell it to update. And then you're going to tell it that, I'm going to create the boot image. But I click next. And basically, I'm preparing the drive, or I'm basically trying to say I'm preparing a boot image so that I can deploy this OS. And so basically right now what it's doing, it's creating the entire image of the boot itself to prepare so that when you start up, it'll be able to install. So I'm going to break for a bit, and we'll come back. We're going to show how to deploy.
Okay, I'll stop the recording for them.
The recording has stopped.